The games continue in Kamen Rider Geats Episode 5 along with my review. So, without any further ado, let's talk about Kamen Rider Geats Episode 5. So once again, this episode of Kamen Rider Geats flew by. I mean, the 23 minutes was over before I even knew it, and I really enjoyed this episode. I think the plot of this show is really sucking me in, that I don't feel like the episode's dragging on, because I think it's the action that happened in the episode that took up most of the episode, really drew my attention in. And although there was like breaks in between the games, you focused on the plot elements because they introduced new aspects and lore to the show. But this episode flew by, and I think that's one thing I loved about this episode. So, the episode starts off with Kawa making a video diary, and he almost gets caught by his sister when he was recording it. But we've also got Buffer, where we find out that he works in construction, and his team and his crew are going to Ace's house. We find out that Ace lives in this pretty sweet home, and Buffer is there to fix it up with his people, because they're working on a show called House Fixers, one of those fixer-upper shows. But I really love the banter and the back and forth between Ace and Buffer, because Ace is kind of a dick and Buffer's kind of a dick, but because like Ace is wearing a red shirt, he's like, hey, I bet you want to charge at me right now because I'm wearing red, and he's like, and Buffer's like, shut the hell up, man. But we find out a new game is taking place, and this one is a teams game. They're playing duos. They're doing duos and Geats. So the whole concept of this game is they've got to work in pairs, but the players with the least score will both be eliminated. So in this episode, they're aiming for a double elimination. And seeing how we've only got 5 of the main crew left who are in the opening, I get the feeling that the ones walking away from this game is going to be everyone except for Mary. I feel like that guy is going to croak next because he hasn't been expanded on that much. We haven't learnt too much about him. He's kind of been like the banter guy and the guy that throws shade at people. We kind of don't know his backstory fully and what he's about and what his whole goal is. So I get the feeling with what he's done so far, where he's kind of been kind of a heel, where he sort of does things that sort of tilt the game in his favor here and there. I get the feeling that he's going to get eliminated next, but because there's 5 people in this game and it's in pairs, so it's a little bit uneven, Mary is paired with a brand new rider, which is the star for the Grand Prix, and that is Kamen Rider Punk Jack, which is sort of like the panda bear or the polar bear, but it's got a pumpkin-shaped head. So again, it's like kind of like the same like panda slash polar bear with a different skin, but this one's, it's a pumpkin one. And there's not much to say about this character because it's sort of like an AI. It doesn't talk much, it doesn't emote much. I mean, he had this one funny scene where sort of Mary threw shade at him and like whacked his arm, whacked his sides, and then Punk Jack responded by punching his arm. Like, don't do that, dude. Alright, quick edit. I'm sort of adding this bit of audio in last minute, but I just found out on the Kamen Rider wiki that scene where Punk Jack hits Mary back, that was unscripted and impromptu. So the actor who plays Mary had no idea it was coming, so you kind of see it from his facial reaction. But seeing how that was impromptu, that did get a laugh out of me. But what's also really funny, it also says that the suit actor apologized because it was so unexpected, and apologized if he might have hurt him, because he did whack him in the neck really hard in that one scene. So that's just a little fun fact about that scene that I just went over. But the pairings that we've got for this game are very interesting. You've got Tycoon and Buffer, where Tycoon wants to help everyone and he's kind of a nice guy. And then you've got Buffer, where he's the jerk and is in it for himself. But we also learn a little bit of a backstory for Buffer, where there was this other character called Toru, I believe their name was. And you see that they were in the same game as Geats and Buffer, and that character was killed off. And it really affected Buffer really badly, because you see the guy crying and breaking down as this other character was dying in Buffer's arms. So I do wonder if we're going to learn that character's backstory later down the line in the show. Now, we've also got Geats and Nago teaming up, where they know how to use their teamwork really well, where they're the ones that discover the weakness of the Yamato in this episode, where I really did enjoy the Yamato in this episode because whenever they tried killing him, nothing worked and they would get right back up and they'd run away, they'd flee. But we find out, and you sort of catch on before they tell you in the show, but the kill the Yamato in this game is because they're based on playing cards and this is a game of pairs, you've got to kill them at the exact same time to get the points. So I really do like that concept that they've got to do for this game, where it's sort of like kill the enemies, get the points, but you've got to kill the enemies in a unique way because this is a game of duos. So I really do like that concept. And then you've got Mary and Punk Jack, where I can't really say much about that team because Mary is kind of the greedy guy. There's this one scene where they start finding the loot boxes all over the floor, and Mary's like, oh boy, this is a really cool item, I'm going to take it for myself. And Punk Jack is just looking at him, and Mary's like, hey, why don't you take this one? And gives him the shield. So Mary takes the good item for himself, and Punk Jack is left with like the measly fucking shield. So you gotta see that Mary is this character that's kind of in it for himself, and he's kind of playing heel and screwing people over in the game to win it for himself. But that's probably going to be his downfall, because you can see that character isn't kind of the best when it comes to combat, and he's sort of like running around and sort of doing these sneaky tactics to survive. Now, one interesting bit of information we learn about in this episode is that the IDs and the raised buckles have affinities, and it's up to the user to make full use of their power. So, meaning one thing that we learn in this episode is certain raised buckles work better with certain IDs, such as Magnum working really well with Geats, which is why we've probably seen Geats in that Magnum outfit and all that promotional artwork. And then we've also got Buffer, who works really well with the zombie buckle. And that's really cool to learn that bit of information, because it's a lot like video games and RPGs where certain weapons work better with certain classes. So you can use a weapon that's not meant for your class, it's not going to do a lot of damage, but if you master it, it's going to get better over time or do more damage later down the line. So that's one thing that they do bring up in this episode, saying, hey, even if you're not good with this buckle, it's good to master it so you can make the best out of all of it. But learning that there's certain buckles that work well with certain IDs, I do wonder which ones we're going to see later down the line. I know that Tycoon is meant to get a power up later down the line with one of his buckles. I believe it's the ninja buckle. Slight spoiler, but if you've seen the toys, you've seen the scans and stuff like that, it's coming. It's not a big plot spoiler, but it's a power up. So that's coming later down the line. But I really did enjoy this episode because it had a lot of cool action scenes in it, especially when you got to see Nago and Geats sort of do their team up against the Yamato, where Geats sort of took out a paint gun and marked all the Yamato and said, hey Nago, you take on these ones, I take on these ones, and that's how they figured out the workaround to defeat the enemies at the same time to get the points. That was really cool, I really liked that scene. But Buffer also had a really cool scene as well when he went hard against one of the Yamato, where he sort of kicked one against the wall and raised the Magnum right up to their face and just went dead shot and got him in one hit, although it got right back up later down the line. That was a really cool fight scene to see in this episode. I really do like the action in Geats where they make good use of all the different unique weapons here and there, but Buffer also does mention in this episode that he's a close range fighter, so that's why he always gets up close and personal against his enemies, and I do wonder if that's going to be his downfall later down the line, and he might have to learn sort of fighting from a distance or sort of being strategic. Now, the episode does end on an interesting note where Mary is given a special card where he can change partners with anyone, and you do see Buffer walking the hallway at the end of the episode, and Mary does show him the card. Now, this is where this review is going to get kind of messy, because my subtitles did not show or did not have an annotation of what was written on the card. So unfortunately, I don't know if it said that Mary's now partnered with Buffer now, or something completely different. So if you're able to tell me in the comment section, that'd be really great. But if Buffer and Mary are teaming up, that should be an interesting duo, because they want to win in their own special way. So I'm curious to see how these two characters are going to bounce off them. And not only that, you've got Punk Jack as well, which, although not a deep and interesting character, I do wonder how they're going to play around with Tycoon and work with him as a teammate. So that'd be really cool to see. But overall, Kamen Rider Geats Episode 5, I really enjoyed. I really like where the show is going. Has my full attention, and I'm definitely going to keep reviewing it until, I don't know, I get bored or something. I really like the show. I really, really like the show. But with that said, I'm going to bring this review to a close. What are your thoughts? What are your predictions? What did you think of this episode? Tell me in the comment section down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions. With that said, I'm going to bring this video to a close. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and I will see you guys later. Peace out, take care, bye.